Alright, so what is this video? This is basically a bunch of rants about the various formations in this game. It's just me talking about them, describing what I know, mostly focusing on how to get perfects, how to collect the fever orb in some cases, and how to let the enemies escape without killing them, which is important in this game. So I can't claim to be very good at editing videos or presenting these things in a way that isn't boring, but I've done what I could and basically have just a big massive ramble about Twinkle Star Sprites. So I'm just gonna have them all in a big all in order, pretty much. I'll put timestamps in the description, but first I guess I'll describe just quickly why these things are important. Why do you want perfects? Why do you want to leave the enemies alone sometimes? So getting perfects in this game, which is shooting one enemy, destroying it directly, and resultingly killing all the others without shooting them. Right? That's probably a really awkward description. Basically, you want to kill one enemy such that the chain reaction kills everything else, without requiring you to kill any of the others yourself. And doing that, it gets you a perfect. You'll see the word perfect display at the bottom of the field. And that has all kinds of effects that are desirable. For one thing, it gives you extra energy for your charge gauge. It applies a fixed extra amount, regardless of the size of the combo. Getting a perfect gives you a certain amount of energy. It also speeds up all of your attacks and slows down your opponent's attacks each time you get a perfect, and it makes the fever orb appear sooner. It will appear in an earlier formation than it would have if you'd been missing perfects. And also getting a perfect makes the next formation itself spawn slightly faster than it would have. So you can speed through the formations by getting rapid perfects, which is very good. And what was I going to say? It also, this is not documented anywhere, but I'm pretty sure getting perfects extends the duration of fever. My experience has led me to believe that, but like I said, I'm not sure about it. So that's perfect. Pretty important. And pacifying, leaving things alive. Why do you want to do that? Well, in this game, it's very important to not reflect normal fireballs a lot of the time. So if you know this game, you know normal fireballs become reversal fireballs, and then reversal fireballs become extra attacks and bosses. So you don't want to give the other player reversals. So a lot of the time you have to not shoot anything to avoid reflecting the fireballs. And that requires leaving the enemies alive and just dodging them, which can be very tricky in a lot of cases. So I've tried to talk about the ways in which that can be done with the different formations, which ones are dangerous, which one have unexpected behaviors, that sort of thing. And yeah, I guess that's it. We'll just go to the explanations. So this formation, this is a very simple one. The two yellow enemies come in, followed by the green ones. To get a perfect, you just need to wait for them to get close enough together, at which point you can destroy any enemy and get the perfect. It does not matter which. You can do the yellow like that, or you can shoot the green one. Technically, green is actually faster. You can get the perfect a little sooner by destroying the green one. But, you know, it doesn't really matter which you do. And if you want to let this formation escape, the green ones home in on you, and the yellow ones move away from you. So it does have a little bit of complexity there. If you don't expect these green ones to come after you, they might surprise you. So, but generally speaking, it's very easy to leave that formation alone. And if the fever orb is in it, nothing unusual. I think it's, I don't know if it's always the middle one or not, but if, it doesn't matter. No position of the orb is inconvenient because this is easy to deal with. So yeah, very simple formation that tends to appear only early in the game. Nothing much to say about it. Alright, this is a really simple one. You get these 5 enemies. They come in from the side, they go back and forth up the screen, and then leave. To get the perfect, you can kill any one of these 3 largest enemies. The fastest way, of course, would be to kill the green one as quick as you can. Like that. But you can kill any of the other ones too. And if you're late, you can just kill them later. The one thing is, if they're too close to the edge when you destroy them, it might not work. And also be careful of like accidentally shooting the lead tiny one like through the others. Otherwise, extremely simple. Exactly what it looks like. One thing to be aware of is this one can easily, very early in the game, it can easily spawn inside you. Like if you're hanging out near the top of the screen. It has no warning and it appears pretty low and will just ram right into you. So in the early game, you need to, I would say, never go up here until you have seen this formation. I'm pretty sure once you've seen it, you can be very confident it won't show up again for a very long time. You know, these early game formations kind of have certain rules about them like that. It won't always show up. So after enough time has passed and some of the later, more complicated formations are appearing, you can go up here relatively safely. But if it's still the early game and you haven't seen this formation yet, you shouldn't go up here, because the threat of it appearing is very real, and it can instantly lose you the game if you get hit by it. Right, just bounce twice and hit a fireball and you're dead. So yeah, watch out. Okay, this is a fairly complicated formation. Basically, these 4 enemies come in with a bubble on this one, and then there's another set of 4 that shows up a little later, and these move towards each other, and then as they leave, this one aims itself at you, and the other one just goes up, like so. So there's a lot of ways to approach this one. Hopefully I'll remember them all. first off, the fastest way to get a perfect on this is to go really close to it, press shot when you're alongside this enemy. Your shot will just hit it instantly. The how close you need to get depends on the width of your character's shot, right? Mevius's are extremely wide, but different characters have different shots, so this is more difficult for some than others, but everyone can do it. It's not really too hard, though arguably more risky than it's worth. Certainly later in the game, bumping into an enemy can just kill you. So a lot of the time you probably don't want to bother with this, but in case you do, you go close to it, and then what you should also do is stay here and shoot this one once as well. This is one of the formations that, at least with this method, can randomly fail, even if you do it seemingly correctly. Damaging this helps prevent that. Sometimes what will happen is this enemy survives. So it's usually you want to damage that one once. And then what you do is you wait for them to get to about that position, and then you destroy this one. You can also shoot this once, then shoot that. That works. You can wait a little longer and shoot the green one. You can even shoot the blue one. It really doesn't matter. The timing is just wait a little longer, depending on which you're going to go for. So to show it, just do this. It's as simple as that. What you can do, and this is much safer, is you actually, a lot of the time, do not need... I think my volume just messed up, but whatever. You do not need to destroy this. You can actually just do this. Oops. You can just pretend that you destroyed the shield, and that was too early. It's pretty consistent. You have to do it at the right time. Something like that, yes. And it just works, even with the bubble still there. So clearly that's much safer. So don't be afraid to do that. If it fails, it doesn't really matter. Because like I said, this formation is more trouble than it's worth a lot of the time. Now there's other ways to get it perfect. One of them is like this. Oh, not without its own risk as well. But basically you wait for this to do that, you shoot it, and then shoot those. Or you can not go down here, but rather go around it, then shoot it, and then destroy the blue one, or the far right enemy, the same way as the other way. So there's a bunch of ways to approach it, all of them inconvenient. So of course, you know, it's perfectly fine to just decide you don't want to deal with this one, and just kill it like that. Because yeah, it's risky to go for perfects on that. Anyway, the Fever Orb. The Fever Orb can be in this. It can be in either set of enemies, potentially. This one or the next one. And what you do when it has the Fever Orb, oftentimes you don't want to go for a perfect. I mean, you can, of course. Depends on the situation. But a lot of the time, especially if the orb is in this group, the second one, and you know this because you see the warning for the orb to appear, and then you see that it's absent from here. So what you can do then is just kill this one immediately, and then shoot this one immediately as well to get the fever orb as soon as possible. Especially if your opponent has the same formation as you and they don't do that. What will result then is they're going for the the really awkward perfect like this, where they've got a bunch of enemies across their screen, and you went for the speed kill to get the fever orb sooner, and now you're going to be sending fireballs at them while they're doing this, and potentially put them in a disadvantageous position immediately. Another trick with the orb in this pattern is you do this method where you wait, and here the thing is, this enemy, what you want to happen, you want to time it just right so that this enemy is as high as possible when it explodes, and you still get the perfect and the fever orb. And the advantage there is, one, when you get a perfect, the next formation appears sooner, and two, because this enemy explodes all the way at the top, ideally partially off screen, there's a very high chance that you link this formation with the next one, so they both explode and you get a massive combo as soon as you start fever. Right? So you destroy this at about that time, and basically that's just a trick to potentially get a big combo. Of course, it depends on your luck with what the next formation is, but it's something you can do, especially if you're being forced to wait anyway for whatever reason. You can just go for this method. And as for leaving this formation alive, like I said, these ones follow a fixed path. The second ones aim themselves at you after doing a little loop. But strangely, for whatever reason, if you're up here, like see, if you're down here, it's gonna do that loop and go down at you. If you're high enough on the screen, it kind of skips the loop and just goes straight up. Not even aiming at you, just goes straight. But not a big deal. This one's easy to leave alive, generally speaking. And I think that's it for this one. It's a complicated pattern with lots of different approaches. But like I said, it's risky, it's tricky. A lot of the time what you're going to do with this one is just speed kill it. Definitely don't get yourself killed trying to do this when you really don't need to. It's just riskier than it's worth most of the time. Okay, this is an interesting formation. These two groups of enemies appear from the top, and they do this little back and forth sort of dance down the screen and then go back up and leave. So to get the perfect, the simplest way is, first, when they come together, just shoot one or both of these shield enemies. It doesn't need to be both. And then when they next come together, shoot one of the little red ones. Like so. If you want to kill both shields, you can do that too. It's not necessary. So that's the simplest way. There are a couple tricks to get a faster perfect on this one, which generally require it to be moving very slowly. So they're only really doable early in the game. But one is you react immediately. You see this. And what you do is you go up, you shoot one of the shield enemies from the side, and then the first time the red enemies come together, you shoot them. The timing is pretty tricky, but if you get used to it, you can do it pretty consistently. And what's nice about that is if it's the first enemy in the game, and you do that, and your opponent doesn't, you're going to send 3 normal fireballs right at them. Usually with the timing such that if they go for the slower method, they'll reverse those back to you. So it's a nice little trick to do that. The other way is what you do is you quickly kill both shields. Ideally, you again want to react fast and get one of them from the side, but it's possible if you shoot them both in the middle. And then what you do is you quickly kill one of the green enemies before they get too far apart, and that will do it as well. This one's really tough. You have to shoot extremely fast. Let's see if I can do it. Nah, too slow. Messed it up. There we go. That's pretty hard to do. I wouldn't worry about it too much. And then, of course, there's various things where you just, if you weaken everything enough, then you can potentially just shoot anything and get the perfect. So there's a couple ways, but generally it's not too hard. Can be inconvenient. Sometimes you just want to get rid of it, especially with the timing. It tends to sort of sync up with your opponent's attacks, potentially. Like every time it comes together, there's fireballs coming down that you don't want to reflect, etc. Fever Orb, it's nothing unusual. The orb is in it. Could just be anywhere. It doesn't cause any problems. And letting this one live, this is a very annoying formation to leave alive, because it's covering the whole screen like this, and then it gets to the bottom and does this sort of thing. So basically it bullies you all the way down the screen and then traps you there. It's possible to go around the outside of it, but pretty tight, and then it comes back up and causes you a problem again. So it's definitely tough to leave it alive while also dealing with whatever else might be coming at you. So if you're in that kind of situation, a lot of the time what you want to do is find a way to at least get rid of one side, and then you have a lot more breathing room. And I think that's it. Kind of a weird formation, but not too complicated. Alright, this one. This is a bit of a deceptively simple formation. Basically, these enemies come in from the side and kind of lay flat along the bottom, and then they aim at you as they leave. So the simplest way to get it perfect on this is just to shoot the big one. Very easy to do. Later in the game, this formation moves very fast and can be tough to react to. But early on, getting the perfect is very easy. And like I said, if you want to leave it, it can be annoying. Kind of forces you around because it aims at you like this. And also obstructs a big part of the screen as it comes in. So it can be a little dangerous if you don't react quickly enough. I think that's basically it. One thing I wanted to say is there's a bug in this game where sometimes enemies are missing from certain formations, and usually when that happens, the formation just behaves normally, aside from the missing enemy. This one is very weird. When an enemy is missing from this, it's the the big purple one will actually go to a different place. It goes further to the side than you would expect, and it does so very quickly. So it's kind of a weird surprise when, like, maybe this or this enemy is missing, and then these other three kind of like they land such that this one is still reaching the wall in the absence of these enemies. Pretty weird, but yeah, very simple pattern. Can be dangerous, but easy enough to understand. And there's also some like weird things, like let's say you damage this like that. You can get it perfect by doing that. Probably more trouble than it's worth. You can also like kill this one. That sort of thing. I think that's it. So for this one, these two sets of enemies appear. You just need to wait long enough to destroy one of the green ones, and that gets you the perfect. Pretty simple. If you go too soon, it will fail, so make sure you wait long enough. What was I gonna say? Because the green enemies are stacked up together, it can be ambiguous sometimes which one you're actually going to damage. So usually it's best to aim for the edges so that you're just sure of what you're hitting. If you go for the middle, you might need more shots than you thought you needed, because you're like damaging randomly all of the enemies. And as for leaving this one alive, it can be dangerous, because these things spread out a lot as they go down to the bottom, and those yellow enemies sort of aim for the corners like that. So what you want to be careful of is, there's one side where you can just stay in the corner, like so, but on the other side, that enemy will ram into you. So if you're on that side, what you need to do is carefully avoid that one. Right, and in a similar way, if you're near the top, they do that. So it's a tricky one to leave alive, but only kind of briefly. There'll be like one moment where it gets a little scary, and then that's it. And the fever orb being in this one is nothing unusual. And what was I gonna say? Sometimes the first row of enemies will be missing, either because the previous explosion got rid of it, or some other reason. And then you can still get a perfect on just these. What you need to do then is either shoot one of the yellow ones once, and then destroy the other one. Or if you wait a little longer, to the point where they sort of come together like that, you can just destroy a yellow one without damaging the other, and that will get you a perfect, in the instance when it's just these enemies and these ones are missing. I think that's it for tricks. You can shoot this thing that's about to hit you, rather than dodge it, if need be. And Yeah, I think that's it. Alright, this one. This is another common formation early on. Um, Basically, these enemies come in and they spin. They spin around the central one and they weave back and forth until they go off screen. Uh, to get the perfect, there's a couple different ways. The most straightforward is to shoot the bubbles off of these two and then shoot one of the other red ones. So to show that, do this sort of thing. And that's a pretty fast way. You can shoot the other one. Oops. Like, let's say you miss one of the first bubbles. Like, you missed that opportunity, you hit that one. And you can do that. There's a faster way. Here what you do is you will shoot the first bubble, and then as this rotates around, there's two ways you can do this that I know of. You can shoot this and then very quickly shoot that, such that it's damaged, and then this thing exploding causes this one to die. Or you can just shoot this one twice. And you might think that sounds easier, but personally I prefer to do the way where you shoot this one and then that one, because you can do it in one swooping motion across. So let's try to show that. And it's a little tough when this is moving faster. I think I'm being too late right now. Yeah, that's how it should be. Usually you want the enemies to be moving, or well, it's easier when the enemies are slower. Since I'm playing story mode right now, the formations are kind of unnaturally fast, so the timings are a little weird. But if this is the first formation in the game, this is not actually very difficult to do. But the timing I usually use is not working. I have to be faster than I would think. And so if you want to just shoot the yellow one twice, that would look like, well, look like that. Like I said, I like to shoot the red one and then the yellow one. I find it easier. And of course you don't have to do this, you can just do it the easier way. And if you let it go, if you let it get further than that, then what happens is there are certain timings, and this is true up here as well. There are timings where you want to shoot these enemies, right, where it will work. If you shoot them at the wrong time, it will fail. You don't want them to be going up on the side, generally speaking. Right, so even if you... Oh, that'll work. It's tough to say. It's hard to really tell why some timings work and some don't. But basically, if you let it get low and shoot one of the little red ones, it will sometimes just not work. So try to do it sooner, where the timings are going to be more familiar to you. Now the fever orb. Or actually, before I get to the orb, this is one of those formations where commonly enemies will be missing sometimes, and that can mess it up, depending on which ones are absent. But what you can do to make up for that, if only one or two are missing, you can just do it normally. Just pretend it's the same, and it will usually work. If a lot of them are missing, then the standard way will fail, but the central enemy is exposed enough that you can actually shoot the bubble off of it. And then you can just destroy the middle enemy. and it will work like that. So you have to kind of think on your feet in those cases when certain enemies are missing. Again, either as a result of the glitch or just because they got exploded by the lingering previous formation. Now about the Fever Orb. There's two places it can be. One is it replaces the central enemy. And in that case, this is really easy. You just shoot, if you want the perfect, I mean, you just shoot the bubbles off, and then anything you kill will get you the perfect. Because the middle thing is just the orb. But also, the orb can be, I'm not sure which one of these it is. I think that one, yeah. Maybe. What you need to do is, if the orb is along the outside, it actually ruins the normal, like, fast timing. Like, if you do it like this, it will just not work. It will get you the Fever Orb, but it will leave one enemy alive. So you lose the perfect. So what you need to do then, in those cases where the orb is one of the outer enemies, is you wait for the next one. Or, yeah, I don't know if it's that specific timing or like one later or whatever. But basically when the orb is there, you sometimes need to change your timing to still get the perfect on it. Assuming you want to bother. And apart from that, it's pretty simple to dodge. This is actually a pretty good one. Like if you're on the defensive, your opponent has fever and you don't, and you just want to dodge things, this tends to not take up too much space. You know, you can just go wherever you want, go above it, and do whatever. And you know, because it takes so long to leave the screen, you get to have a nice open field for a pretty long time. So it's not a difficult one at all to leave alone, if that's what you want to do. Alright, this is an easy one to do incorrectly if you don't know what you're supposed to do. Basically, you cannot just kill the blue enemy outright. You need to damage the purple one at least once, and then you can kill the blue one. You can also just kill the purple one directly, and that will work. So to show that, you damage that, and then you do it. So this is a formation that, if you react quickly enough, you can do it much faster. Especially like if it's the first formation in the game. So what that looks like generally is killing the purple one right off the bat. You can also damage it and kill the blue one. Those are equally fast. And otherwise, you know, it's just kind of this weird thing. You have more of these like bouncing yellow enemies along the wall like that. And the other ones, they're actually bouncing off the other wall. Yeah. So it's kind of an obnoxious one to have to dodge. But not too bad. You can shoot away an enemy or two without causing a problem in most cases. The Fever Orb. The Fever Orb sometimes replaces the blue enemy, which can block your shots for hitting the purple one, so you should try to be familiar with the feel, I guess, of shooting at the purple, because it's faster as well in most cases. And yeah, very simple pattern. I think that's all I have to say about it. Alright, this is a pretty common formation. These blue things kind of come down and get closer to each other the lower they get, and then everything else just kind of follows them down. and these yellow ones kind of spiral all over the place right at the end. For this, basically you want to just kill one of the blue ones, but not too quickly. If you do it too soon, it will generally fail, though if you have damaged the other things enough, you can potentially do it. But let's see, like that'll not, yeah, that doesn't work. If the other enemy had been damaged, it can be done. I didn't even damage it that time, I hit the other thing, but you know, sometimes it works. But basically, you want to wait until they're lower. That's the consistent way. But yeah, like early, again, if it's like the first formation, and you're a fast character, something you can potentially do is like shoot this one twice, and then kill the other one sooner than you normally would have if you hadn't damaged the other. And another thing that sometimes happens is these will show up damaged already by some other thing. So they'll be yellow, and in that case you can shoot them almost instantly to get the perfect, in the rare cases when that happens. In fact, I can try to show that because the previous, let's see, I fucked it up. See, like that. So if you destroyed something right at the top, they sometimes show up all heavily damaged, and then you can just shoot them immediately to get the perfect. Let's see, as for leaving it alone, it's a little obnoxious. Those yellow ones do that big spiraling outward sort of thing. And so, you know, if you're like up here, you might get rammed into them, rammed into by them. And you know, they kind of, it's not perfectly spaced. They originate slightly off-center, so they won't necessarily go to the same elevation on each side. So recognizing the orientation of this pattern can be important in dodging these little yellow ones. But generally, you know, it kind of takes up a lot of space very briefly. So if you can get past the initial descent, it's not too hard to just avoid this one. And otherwise, I think that's it. Yeah, there's some weird things you can sometimes do to just randomly get perfects, but that's true of most things. So this is a pretty fun one. This formation comes in and just goes back and forth down the screen and eventually exits sideways. So to get the perfect on this, you want to shoot these bubbles off, and then you can basically just shoot anything and get a perfect. So this is a little unintuitive, the timing to shoot these things. You kind of want to shoot behind them rather than dead center. Often if you shoot like right here, you'll actually hit this. And so you want to kind of aim like here to hit this enemy. Let's try to show it. Or, turn it down. See? And then you can just shoot wherever you want. So there's a couple ways to do this that don't involve breaking every bubble. Like for instance, the last one, you just don't need to kill it. If what you do is you wait until this is in front of that, and then you shoot this thing to to immediately break that bubble, and then the whole thing takes long enough to explode that it gets the remaining thing as well. Right. And you can even leave 2 of them alive. Timing's a little stricter, but you can get away with it. And so yeah, pretty straightforward, I think. You know, you can do that sort of thing if you want to show off. Just slide across in one motion. And so leaving this one alive, of course, is extremely easy. This formation can be a godsend in situations where you need to just shoot nothing and dodge, because it takes forever and you get a ton of space to move. So that's generally a great formation to get. Very, very easy to use for whatever purpose you want. Alright, this one requires pretty fast reaction. Certainly later in the game, when it moves quickly, it can be tough to react to this quickly enough to get it perfect on it. There's essentially 2 basic ways to do this. You can either shoot this enemy with basically any timing, just as soon as possible. Shoot this and you'll get it perfect. Or what you can do is you need to shoot this one and then damage the thing behind it. If you just shoot this, it won't work. You need to fire 1 additional shot that weakens the next enemy. So 3 shots total. 2 to kill this, 1 to injure that. Alright, so let's show that. Let's see that. Like so. So pretty simple. And then as it leaves, it just does that. The front 3 retreat, and then these 4 kind of just fan out downward. One thing to be very, I guess, careful about or aware of is because this shows up and then leaves so fast, if the fever orb is in it, you can miss the fever orb. Especially if it's here, where, you know, if you may have been planning to shoot this enemy, but then it's the orb and it blocks your shots, and then it zoop, goes right back off and you miss it. So a lot of the time, if this does show up later and the orb is here, you don't really have time to go all the way over and shoot that. You just have to, you know, kill one of these and shoot the thing behind it. So be wary of that when the orb shows up in this pattern. You don't have a long time to get it before it gets away. And otherwise, this is really simple. Nothing much to say about it. So this is a common early formation. What happens is these 4 things show up first, and they slowly move down. And then 4 enemies are going to come from the side. And there's a ton of ways to get perfects on this pattern. The simplest, of course, is to just do that. Just wait for the enemies to show up and shoot the bottom one. You can also, and this is it's very good to know other ways of doing it, because when the fever orb is in this formation, it sometimes replaces the bottom enemy. So you can't just shoot this to get the formation, or to get the perfect. So the other ways, just to go through some of them, there's, I guess, 3. I never see anyone do the middle. But what you can do is you can hug the wall either here or here, and then shoot the enemy that appears in front of you and get it perfect like that. So that requires a certain familiarity with your character's hitbox. You can use the design on the walls as an indicator for the heights for these things, like that, or to do the higher one, like so. So those, kind of risky. I wouldn't really do that late in the game, but they can be useful. Also, depending on your charge attack, a lot of characters can do this one with a charge like that, depending on the angle. You can also do this by just leading it to the side, because these green ones follow you. Did it wrong that time. You don't want them to go too high. Like that, you can do it. You can also, you can just shoot these like that without actually going up there in front of them. Or you can just damage them and then shoot those. So there's all kinds of different ways. All the same, sometimes this formation is too dangerous to keep around. The need to leave these alive kind of blocks off a lot of space, because they come down and then they slowly go back up. If you're in a dangerous situation, often you'll need to just kill these to make room to dodge. So be careful with this one. It also can encourage you to go into the corners to do this, which is a bad place to be. So definitely know the other methods, the more complicated methods, because this is perhaps the worst way to do it, to just go down here. And yeah, like I said, the fever orb, sometimes it's here, sometimes it's here. If it's here, you need to do a more complicated method, or you'll miss it. And then just dodging this is pretty easy, if it gets far enough. And like I said, if you need to get rid of those, just get rid of them. Don't worry about it. So yeah, nice versatile formation. Tons of different things you can do with it. This is a weird one. So you get these 3 independently rotating sets of enemies moving down the screen. Now, ideally, what you can do is just destroy really any one of them, like so. Get it perfect like that, or maybe do that one. That can get you a perfect. There's a variety of ways, but the thing that makes this formation tricky is that it actually aims itself at you when it appears. And there's essentially no way to plan for this. It's just wherever you're standing when it shows up determines its precise behavior. And the problem with that is there are some positions where, like, see if I go over here, see it's different. They aren't lined up the same way. And so, depending on where you're standing, getting the perfect can be difficult or even impossible. Like in this situation, it seems like there's no way to do it. Like if I was all the way over here, they just don't seem to connect. Maybe if I go for the green one. Yeah. Oh, yeah, it worked. So it's weird in that it just kind of depends on your luck of where you happened to be standing when it showed up. But generally speaking, the idea is shoot one of the red ones and it will connect. Sometimes what you have to do is shoot a red one and then quickly damage the first yellow one, not shooting too late, because what will happen is these will explode and only do 1 damage to it. So you need to soften it up first, like so. Actually, I failed that time. That one did it. You know, it's not always necessary, and it's hard to tell when it is necessary, but sometimes you have to do that. So this is a weird one. It's an unreliable one to get perfects on. And as for dodging it, you know, it basically just is what it looks like. You get out of the way. You know, in some cases, maybe you can do something weird where you, like, go through them. But generally, you know, it's just a big thing that takes up space. Its behavior is uncomplicated, even if the way in which you might deal with it could potentially be complicated. I think that's all I have to say about it. You know, it's one of those ones where you might get the perfect, you might not. It's just randomly kind of works or doesn't work without much rhyme or reason. All right, this one's a little complex. So the green enemies come down as a line, and once they reach a certain distance, they start to sort of lean over like this into a diagonal that goes across. Meanwhile, these yellow ones do kind of a zigzag down the side, kind of like they're bouncing off the wall. And then the red ones just go in a straight line, and then I think they go back up, right? And then they aim at you. Yes, they go up, and then they go right towards you. So there's three distinct groups. To get the perfect on this, there's kind of a couple ways to do it. The main idea is you need to shoot the bubble and then shoot one of the green enemies at the correct time. So you hit the bubble, you do that, and you get the perfect. You can also shoot one of the other greens, like the third one. That's possible. If you don't get the bubble soon enough, there's a timing to get it, like right here. You can shoot it, and then shoot the green. Right, something like this. There's fireballs in the way. I messed it up that time somehow, but you get the idea. So kind of strict. And of course, if you miss the bubble, you end up with that one remaining. Basically, getting the perfect on this requires reacting fast enough and having the room needed to reach the enemies you need to reach. And if you want to leave this one alive, it's very tricky to do. The one thing is here is safe, but then you get the yellows coming down and the red ones aim at you. You can also sort of go up above it like this. You can fit through these yellow ones have them kind of bounce around you and go up like that. So it's you know, it's a bunch of stuff going all over the place. It's usually difficult to deal with it without killing at least something. Like killing the red ones can make things a lot easier and is unlikely to reflect anything because they're so small. So yeah, there's probably other really bizarre ways to get perfects on this one that I don't know or care to explain. So I think that's it. It's yeah, it's a dangerous one when you don't want to reflect anything, because it's difficult to dodge without shooting. And otherwise, the perfect is not too hard, despite what it looks like. It just kind of there needs to not be anything in your way, pretty much. If there's something blocking you, then you sometimes just can't do it. Here's a pretty cool one. There's a couple ways to get it perfect on this formation. You can, any of these you can destroy, or any of these, depending on your timing. You don't want to shoot these, basically. So the first thing that happens is this shows up. Like so, it comes in. And this is dangerous if you're up here, because you see how quickly this shows up. See that? You have almost no warning. You can see these, but there's going to be an enemy coming from here, which is pretty low to just be immediately coming out of the side like that. Not that there's really any way to predict this. You just kind of, it's one of those that can unfortunately just screw you over. But anyway, so it comes in like so, and what you want to do is, just as it starts moving back up and these other enemies come in, you shoot this one. It's the simplest way. You can shoot any of these, but this is the easiest. And also, this is hard to explain, but this formation is strangely affected by the rank, by the speed of the game. Basically, as you can see, these came in very quickly, and they're condensing in the center before the yellow ones reach them. But when the game is running slower, the yellow ones actually meet in the center before these ones. So the behavior of the whole formation kind of changes in a certain way. And basically what that is when it's really slow, you have to wait a long time to shoot the yellow ones. You have to wait until they're like that to kill them, because these enemies will have only just gotten close enough, because they come in so slowly. But when the game is fast like this, it's the opposite, and so you can shoot this pretty soon and still do it. The other ways, which are good to know, it's also good to know where you should know, according to this, which of these is going to come from which side. Basically, the little red ones will be above the yellow, and then the bigger ones will be here. Because sometimes this is a nice formation to know how to just sort of weave around like that without getting rammed into. But anyway, you can get a formation by shooting that one. It's kind of hard with crap in the way, or when it's moving too fast. It's a pretty decent way to do it in a lot of situations. You can also shoot this one as it comes in, but that when it's moving this fast is extremely difficult. When it's slower, it's very easy to hit this. But right now it's, yeah, it's just kind of too fast for it to be reasonable. And yeah, you know, it's one of these ones where, depending on the speed of the game and your timing, you can just kind of do whatever, and you'll get it perfect. It's also a common one to have enemies missing. Right, like sometimes you'll just get the second set without the yellow ones, and then again you just destroy one of these and it will do it. Sometimes you even just get these, and then, you know, that's also easy, just shoot one. And that's that. Dodging this, sometimes difficult, sometimes not. Just kind of depends on how things sync up. Overall, it's not too bad. This is one of the really versatile formations. There's a whole bunch of ways you can do this. Unfortunately, it's kind of like really fast because of the single player. But basically, the yellow and the green do the same thing. They both go down till they reach the same height as you. Then they go sideways, and then once they've lined up with you again, they go down. So you can sort of engineer different situations based on how you move. Meanwhile, these red ones just do this bounce sort of thing. So there's a variety of approaches for both getting it perfect or for just avoiding it, depending on the situation. So the simplest perfects are like, there's that, where basically the idea is you're bringing both the yellow and the green to the center, and then shooting the yellow, like so. And important thing to realize there is you don't actually need to get the green moving horizontally immediately, because you can see the yellow is a little lower, so it will turn sooner. And what you can do is, once you get the yellow going, you just shoot it, and then you can wait there because it won't hit you since it's exploding, and then the green will keep going and then turn into it. So you don't need to go so far up that you get the green to also turn. So it's like this. See? Now, yeah, there's situations where you might want it to. It's just too hard to really show because they're moving so fast that it's limiting the kinds of things that will actually work with this. But the other main way to do it is to just keep the green going down the side and shoot it like that, and the yellow will go across to catch it, and then bring the chain reaction over to the red ones. And if you get too low, that happens. So that's one that you want to do sooner than later. And what else? I think that's about it. You know, there's a couple, like, ways to delay it as long as possible, if that's what you want to do, provided it's moving slower. And just dodging it, again, you can do all kinds of things. Usually you want to get rid of those red ones immediately, if you can help it, since they'll get in the way. When they reach the bottom, they turn around and go back up like that. It can be a problem. And then yeah, you know, lots of cute tricks you can do with this. I don't think there's too much else to say. It's one you've got to experiment with and find all the little approaches to it. Alright, here's one that has some important things to know. So this comes around and does a big circle and goes down off the screen. So the main idea here to get it perfect is you need to shoot all these bubbles off of these. Then shoot this and damage this. If you don't damage this one, it will usually not work. The exception is if you're in Fever. In Fever, you generally don't need to damage this. And there also won't be bubbles, of course. So it's very easy to get it perfect in Fever. But like this, you have to do... Okay. You have to do this sort of thing. Oops. It's kind of a fairy in the way, but like that. You start the combo, and then you have damaged the green enemy afterward. Actually, it looks like it's might just be working without that. In this case, yeah, because the rank is so high. In a normal human versus human game, it would not be like that. You would have to damage. These would all be moving slower, of course, and you would have to. You'd have to damage this enemy at least once. The other way you can do it is you can damage this first. Like that, and then go down there and do it. So it's not simple, but it's one of the easier ones, really. There's also a thing you can do where you just shoot them like that. Shoot all the bubbles off and then kill one of those. And it will actually go all the way around and get you the perfect. I have no idea why it sometimes works and sometimes doesn't. It's just one of those things. But in my experience, it's pretty rare that that works. What else? The fever orb. This is an important thing. So when the fever orb is in this formation, what does it do? It leads, or at least it can. I think it can also be at the end. But one option is for it to be here. And basically, what that does is you need to shoot this enemy to get the fever orb, but most timings will not work. This will explode and connect down the line, but the orb will just stay there and keep going around. So from what I've experienced, if this is the orb here, the correct timing to get it is when it's around this area. Maybe a little higher than this, like right here. When the orb is there, you shoot the red enemy behind it, and that will get it. If you shoot it here, it almost always fails, for whatever reason. So this is a very easy situation to miss the orb in, if you don't know this weirdly specific timing to get it. And I think that's that. This is one you can cause slowdown in some cases because there's so many bubbles. Shooting all these bubbles can slow the game down, which can be a defensive technique in this game. Another thing is often you'll want to just kill this formation as quick as you can, like that. It's pretty hard to do it right now because it's so fast, but that sort of thing is sometimes needed to catch reversals or avoid sending reversals or that sort of thing. And yeah, like I said, it typically requires damaging that one there, but since the rank is so high here, it's not needed. You can do this one in several ways. Basically, these start coming down here and they turn like this, and then these show up and sort of follow them around, and then these aim at you after the loop that they do. Like that. You can make them go all over. So to get the perfect, there's a couple ways. The fastest is probably if I can do it. Shoot that when it's right there. That was a little early. If the rank were lower, that would probably have failed. But it's moving so fast that the timing is kind of awkward. But around there, like that, is generally the fastest way. But you can also you can shoot the second one. That one sometimes works, sometimes fails. I don't generally recommend it. You can also you can do the last one, which also sometimes fails. That didn't even do anything that time. The first one is the most consistent, I would say. You can also shoot the other enemies. This is a really useful one to know. In fact, in a lot of cases, what you do is you're here, and you just tap shot twice, and you get the perfect like that. But again, the rank is so weird. So that works, basically. Depending on your timing, you'll either hit the red one, and then the yellow, or both will just hit the yellow, because the red will move out of the way, like that. Either is fine. It's okay if you shoot the red one, as long as your second shot is fast enough to hit the yellow before it turns red. And then there's also this timing. That's probably the absolutely easiest, but also the slowest, is to just shoot that. I think that's it. This is one of those formations with like a loop and then aim sort of movement, so it might be possible to get it to do something weird. Yep. If you're up here, it will just go straight up and leave, rather than aim at you. That bug is present in a couple formations. But other than that, it's pretty simple, very easy to dodge. Lots of ways to get perfects on it. Pretty simple one. All right, this is a fairly easy perfect to get. Basically, If you're fast enough, you can shoot one of these yellow ones and get it. If you're slower, you shoot the green. And the timing for the green ones is extremely generous. You can just kind of do it whenever. For the yellow, you have to be much faster. And the orb of being there changes nothing. So pretty easy to get it perfect on. To dodge it, like see, even that gets it perfect, despite how late that was. To dodge it, it can be a little tricky, because these things, they spread out again as they reach the bottom. So there's basically going to be 3 openings that you can go through. You can't hug the bottom for this one. It's very important to know you need to go up like that. For the other one, I'm not sure. I think you also can't. Yeah. So if you're going to go around on the sides, you need to go up at the last second. And then going between them in the middle is the same deal. So it's can be slightly dangerous or difficult to get through it without destroying it. And this is one where if you do shoot it, it's gonna make a big combo, pretty much. So it's can be tough to not reflect things when that is your goal. But otherwise, it's really straightforward. Like I said, you can be pretty late on the reaction and still get the perfect. And yeah, nothing too much else to say about it. These you don't need to deal with, they just go down the side. That's it. This formation is a very simple one. You just have these 2 lines of enemies that cross each other. To get the perfect on this, there's kind of 2 ways. One is to just shoot this enemy outright. And the other way is, I messed it up. You want to damage this one twice, and then kill that one. And there's a couple other ways you can do it. Like you can kill this one and then damage that one with 1 more shot. Like that. And you can damage this one first, then kill that one. It's not very strict with what you kill and how you kill it. And the higher the rank, the more lenient it becomes. So it's pretty easy to get it perfect on it. Dodging it can be tough because it occupies a lot of the screen. And that's about all there is to it. It's an extremely simple one. It just is what it looks like. So this one is pretty simple. You get these blue enemies coming down the side. They sort of fall over and then move in a diagonal line downward. And then these yellow ones and another group of green ones show up. The yellow ones just go over here and go down. The green ones drop to your level and then move sideways. So the perfect is pretty simple. What you can do is you either shoot the bottom blue enemy at the correct time, and they connect like that. You can also shoot the top enemy of the blue ones, like that. And presumably any other blue one if you can manage to do it fast enough. Now dodging this one without shooting it can be a little tricky because it takes up so much space. You can go under these like that. That is safe. If you get trapped by the blue ones, you actually can fit between them. Though this, of course, is extremely risky. Right. I don't recommend going for that. If you get stuck underneath them, you should probably just bomb. Unless you're very, very familiar with the spacing. And otherwise, it's pretty straightforward. Relatively simple pattern. Nothing much else to say about it. This one is basically pretty simple. This group of 4 comes down. They have this sort of behavior where they move towards you for a while, then they stop, and then they move the opposite way off the screen. So for instance, if I'm standing here, they will exit by sort of spreading out to the upper left, like that. Whereas if I were down here, they'd go the other way. Right? Then the other 2, you get this group that bounces along the walls, and then these little yellow ones that just spread out. So to get the perfect, it's not too precise. You just want to shoot one of these enemies as they move up. It works very easily, most ways. One thing to be careful of is, if you were on one side of it, right, then you're going to have this enemy going at kind of a shallow angle off the side, and if you haven't weakened it, it can escape, like it probably will in this case. See, there it goes, off the side. Same thing the other way. Oh no, that time I got it. But yeah, be careful of that. It's generally a good idea to injure both of those in that sort of way. You know, you can also potentially shoot these ones like that. In that case, again, an enemy escaped that side. You can just go above it like this. Don't fuck it up. That sort of thing. Like I said, it's not too precise. Basically just destroys something at around the time when these are going back up. And you'll get it. Now skipping this one can be dangerous because it's got those enemies in it that bounce on the wall. These ones. They kind of block this whole area as they go down. But all the same, you can go around them like that, and you also have to watch for those yellow ones. It doesn't take too long to get out of your way, but for the time that it is there, it's taking up most of the screen. So that's that, I guess. You can also You know, if you shoot these ones too soon, they just go away like that, which can make things simpler, potentially, if you just want to dodge. This is probably the simplest bubble formation. It shows up, moves down one side, goes diagonally up to the top, and then comes back down, leaves on the bottom. So it's pretty obvious how to get a perfect on it. You can shoot them immediately, like that, assuming you get the coin fast enough. You can also shoot the purple enemies on the back. You can, let's say you're late in getting the coin, which will often happen, like this. You can do that. Or of course you can wait until right before it leaves. So it's very versatile. You can basically destroy it at any time you want and still get a perfect. On the other hand, it does tend, later in the game, it does tend to be difficult to actually get the coin because the formation comes in so quickly and it's pretty big. So it'll often be the case that the only times the coin is showing the star, it's inside the formation. And so in those cases, you just have to kind of accept that you're not going to get it. Don't be risky and try to hug the side of it as close as you can to get the coin. It's not worth it. And otherwise, it's very simple. It's important to notice it will not hit you at the bottom there, nor will it hit you, and this is really good to know, nor will it hit you at the top, right here. So it shouldn't be too hard to let it escape if you need to, and otherwise, like I said, it's a very straightforward pattern. That's exactly what it appears to be. So here's a bubble wave. You need to collect the coin to get rid of all the bubbles. This is probably the easiest one to actually pick up the coin for, since it tends to not move too much aside from the area where it starts. But basically you've got these three groups of enemies. These ones come in the side, these do the sort of loop and aim thing, and these just, like, I don't know what they do. They bounce down the side, right? Yeah. And then these aim at you. So this is pretty easy to get a perfect on, assuming you get the coin. And there's a couple ways to do it. Generally you're going to want to stand around here, because these yellow ones aim at you, and you want them to go this way. And what you do is you shoot either this or this when they get about to this area. Can be either one. So let's just show that. I think the middle green one is usually the more reliable. If you go for the first one, it might leave some of them alive sometimes. You can also do it in some other ways. One of the really cool ones is like this. I did it wrong. You go above it and shoot twice very quickly. Basically what you're doing is you're hitting the red enemy and damaging the yellow one behind it. And then get out of there, because they will ram into you. The advantage of doing it that way is that it can connect to the next formation that spawns, since it's exploding at the top of the screen. and you're causing these green enemies to aim straight up. And you can also do this, I think, by killing the yellow ones. But it's a little weird. Yeah. Just have to lead them in the not too downward direction. So there's a couple ways to do it. None of them are super hard. I don't recommend this one unless you are sure you know how to do it, because you can die if you bump into something. And otherwise, it's pretty obnoxious to have to leave alive. Mainly because of these ones that bounce to the wall repeatedly. You know, you can go through it if you need to. Like that. And those green ones have that same bug, where they'll aim straight up if you're high enough on the screen. Like that, which again can be used to get rid of them. So yeah, that's that. For this one, you have 3 groups of enemies. The 2 on the sides drop down to your level and then move inward, trying to crush you from both sides. These ones move across until they're above you and then move straight down. So of course, again, you need to get the coin to get rid of the bubbles, and then the basic idea is generally you will shoot the yellow ones and make sure you cause the walls to move inward soon enough to not miss it. So like this sort of thing. If you just keep going down like that, it will fail. You want to go high enough that those 2 groups move towards you. There's a couple other ways to do it, like you can potentially shoot one of the side groups, but at this speed it's a little awkward to do that. Sometimes with this one, because those yellow enemies appear from a random side, if you're standing on the wrong wall, when it shows up, it will just instantly move down, like that. Which can prevent you from getting it. If you can move and shoot fast enough, you can still get it in this situation. By doing that, that almost worked. You see it killed those enemies off the bottom of the screen. At this speed, it failed, but generally doing it that way would have worked. And then of course, you know, there's the obvious threat of this one doing this sort of thing, right? If you miss the coin or whatever. So you can fit through these. I strongly recommend you become comfortable with doing it. I'm not really too familiar with Mevius's hitbox position, but there's a couple groups in the game where the enemies are spaced this way, so it's very good to know the exact height that you need to be at to fit between these things, so that you don't get screwed over by this formation and some of the other ones that do the similar thing. And you know, you can also you can shoot one of these and then do that. That can make it a lot simpler, because the other wall will move sooner, and then you can just back up a little bit, right? Like if I shoot this one, then I can wait for this to drop to what would have collided with me, at which point the blue one will start moving this way. Then I can just move down and go up here, and then this one will go that way. Let's see. I think I'm gonna get hit because I was too slow. But like that sort of thing. And then the other thing as well is when it is going to do this, when it is going to descend most of the way down the screen, do not hug the floor, right? If you just go up a little like that, you can make it so that the bottom will be safe once the enemies move, see? Whereas if you just stay down the whole time, they're gonna hit you, and you have to go through them. So you should make it second nature, again with this formation and with similar ones, to recognize that they're gonna trap you, and wait a little bit above the ground to get them to do that, so you can fit underneath them. You really don't need much space at all. That was too little, but like that'll probably work. Yeah. And then otherwise you can go above them if you're really fast and they're not moving this quickly. It's usually actually not impossible to get above these, but again, the rank is so high that they're too fast. Yeah, dangerous, very dangerous formation, especially if you miss the coin. But if you know what you're doing, you can avoid a lot of the death traps associated with it by making the enemies move in more favorable directions. Alright, for this one, you can pretty much kill anything once you've collected the coin. Any one of these big enemies will usually work. You can also kill one of the yellow ones once they've begun to move back up. So it's really easy to get a perfect on this one, assuming you get the coin. Right, you just shoot that. You can shoot, that, or even one of those. One thing to notice is that these spinning groups are actually aimed at you. So depending on where you stand, their exact location will be slightly different. See, like if I'm over here, they look like that. Whereas if I'm over here, see how this one's like partially off the side of the screen. Usually you don't want this, so don't stand too close to this part, which can be kind of misleading, because see, you go here, because in the ideal setup you usually want to shoot this blue enemy right there, right? But if you're standing at this line here, when they show up, this group will be a little further left than you want it to be, right? I guess in that case it wasn't like that. See, you don't usually want it to be like that, so it's good to just sort of wait in the middle and then go left to shoot it. But like I said, it just kind of works almost regardless of what you shoot. Doesn't matter too much. As for skipping it, it's not as bad as it looks, honestly, because these two things kind of get closer together as they go down the screen. You can usually go around it on either side, like that, and then these yellow ones aim themselves at you once they reach this height. but again, they're not usually a problem. You can go over them like that if you need to. Not a dangerous pattern, generally speaking. Certainly as far as the bubble formations go, it's one of the simplest. So nothing too much to worry about. Alright, this one. This is one of the most difficult formations to deal with in this game. First, these 4 enemies show up, all in bubbles, and they very quickly sort of descend on one half of the screen. And then after they line up at the bottom, they'll aim at you. And at the same time, 4 little enemies will come down here. And after those, even more enemies will show up in a vertical line on the same side of the screen that the bubble enemies landed on. Alright? And then all these things sort of home in on you in various ways. So it's complicated. There's a lot of elements. So let's see. To get the perfect, there's a couple slightly different approaches. But the gist of it is you need to first remove the bubbles. I messed up. Well, actually, I think I did it accidentally. But first remove the bubbles. Then you're going to go above them. And what you want to do is damage or just destroy one of these enemies. Right. This is hard to play and pause while doing it. About this time, they start coming up at you. You wait as long as you can, then destroy this, and then you have to damage the first green one for 2 shots as well. Right? So I'm going to do something like that. And that gets you the perfect. It's very tricky. I would say very, very rarely should you ever actually go for the perfect on this, because it also tends to be, it's the kind of thing that easily reflects a lot of stuff that you might not want to reflect. So it's risky to even do it, even if you're successful. And, you know, risks getting you trapped in various ways. If you mess up, you know, you get these enemies coming up at you, and you might be, you know, between them like that. And some slight variants on this. It's like, you know, you can do the other one. But all the methods basically look like that. So the fever orb, if the orb is in this, you need to be careful, because it can replace this enemy, right? So if you're already lined up here and you've got these things coming at you, and you're planning to shoot this and you're not paying attention, and this is the orb, you might ram into it. So you need to be prepared for that, and if this one's the orb, you shoot this one instead. The orb can also be here. I'm not sure if it can be either of these. But in this case, it's also problematic for another reason I'll get to. So if the orb is in this one, just watch out. Make sure you don't blindly shoot at the enemy that has been replaced, not realizing that the orb is there. So now, how to manage this if you don't want to go for the perfect? There's a couple ways, right? Well, first off, a lot of the time, because it's so difficult to dodge this one without killing anything, usually you're going to compromise to some degree. So, like what I do a lot, for one thing, is as this comes down, I know these enemies are going to appear, so I just immediately shoot twice to get rid of that. And that gives you a lot more space. And of course, you know you can shoot the other one too. It's these ones that are generally the big problem. They'll chase you around. And if you want to destroy nothing, then it's very tricky. Because these ones, of course, aim at you. This line of yellow ones are homing. And then the vertical set descends to your position and then moves sideways toward you. Right? So even on its own, it'll follow you down like this, see? And then it does that zigzag across. So leaving this one alive, especially later in the game, where these enemies move very fast, it's very tricky, especially very late in the game. Like when the Grim Reaper is out. These initial enemies are so fast and have no warning and are covered in bubbles, and they cover this whole half of the screen. A lot of the time you're just going to be forced to bomb because you're stuck down here, you can't get out of the way for whatever reason, and these just come down at you, and it's a death trap. So that can be very, well, it can be a forced bomb pretty much. And you know, these things that follow you around, you know, if your opponent is in fever and there's constant fireballs, and you're shooting those, I find that they're just weirdly prone to catching anything that comes near them. It's oftentimes very hard to destroy these enemies in a way that doesn't reflect any fireball that's going past, because they just kind of go across the whole screen. But yeah, so there's all kinds of different maneuvers you can do to dodge all these things that come after you. It's a very dangerous pattern, and like I said, getting the perfect is usually hopeless. When this thing shows up, your main concern is just avoiding a big problem, avoiding getting trapped or reflecting something you don't want to reflect, that sort of thing. Alright, here's a pretty dangerous one. So what happens is these enemies come in and do a big loop around the screen. Meanwhile, the red ones, they come straight down, and what they do is they go to your vertical level and start moving sideways, and then when they reach your horizontal level, they go straight down. So these make this a very annoying pattern, as well as the fact that there's a bubble on the first one. They kind of chase you around the screen, and these ones just make the walls inaccessible. So to get the perfect, it's one of the more difficult perfects. What you generally need to do is destroy this bubble, damage this, then wait in the corner and shoot this at the last instant. So let's try to show it. Oops. I shot too soon. Or did I just not hit that thing? There's fireballs in the way. Like that. It's absolutely one of the harder ones to do. And also, is prone to reflecting things that you don't want reflected, because it forces you to idle in one area for a long time, and then when you start the combo, the enemies are exploding in that same area. So it's very likely that fireballs will be sent here and get reflected that you might not want to be. So usually this is not worth bothering with. It's also just risky, you know. In some cases, it's not necessary to damage this enemy. When the game is running very quickly, you can sometimes get away with not damaging this one and just shooting these. On the other hand, if it's going really slow, you might also need to damage this one as well as this. Damage both of these and remove the bubble. So you just have to sort of judge. Like during Fever, for instance, you don't need to damage these. It'll usually work without it. And of course the bubble won't be there either. So there's other ways to get perfects on this that are much less consistent. Like for instance, there is one where you lure this here and shoot it, and then it connects across this way. I don't really know the specifics of how to do it. You know, it's pretty crazy. And also these fireballs are making it tough to be at the correct elevation I need to be. Yeah. I don't know how to do that. And the other way is right at the top. If you react immediately, you can get a perfect on it, like so. That generally requires knowing that it's going to be the next formation somehow, like your opponent got it first. Or if you're in Fever and there's slowdown, you can potentially, like if you're at the top of the screen anyway, and you see this coming, and you can potentially react fast enough. And what you need to do then is, as you shoot these, you need to make sure that you cause these little enemies to move to the right. Right, if you just shoot and then drop down, the bubble enemy will follow you the whole way and do that. So you need it to go into the explosions, which ideally will linger long enough to remove the bubble and then kill the enemy as well. But yeah, that's tough to do. Rarely will that happen. And otherwise, avoiding this one is tricky, because it covers the walls and floor, which in a lot of cases, you know, like if there's a boss on your screen and these things are going underneath, it's a big pain. And so you need to account for these homing ones in some way. Right, they can potentially take all kinds of paths depending on what you do. And also, of course, destroying them is an option. Since they're so tiny, it's unlikely to cause a huge catastrophe. And also, it's worth realizing you can be here and not get hit. The circling formation does not reach. I think you can be down there too. Yes. Those are dangerous places to be, but you know, if you're forced, it's good to know that at least you don't get hit if you're there. So yeah, very tricky, very unpleasant formation to find. You know, usually you just want to get rid of it. It's one of those where the perfect is risky, even if you do it right, and just the formation being on screen limits your mobility so much, you probably just want to make it go away as soon as possible. This is a difficult one to deal with. So basically you have three sets, the yellow, the green, and the blue. The first thing that shows up is the yellow. And immediately the annoyance of this formation is just by looking at this, you can't tell which side the green and the blue are going to appear from, which is something you'd really like to know, but unfortunately it's not clear. So they show up, the green comes in from the side, and that's the big danger. Because if you're here, it might ram into you. And then the blue one just comes down like that. So the perfect on here is a weird one. It's one of those formations where you can kind of just randomly get a perfect almost by killing anything. But if you want to do it consistently, the main idea is first you need to destroy this. And this is a little bit weird because similar to that, the one that moves back and forth like this, comes in and goes down, and it's got the 4 bubbles. To hit this, you don't necessarily want to aim right at it. There's one side which hits it, and then if you shoot the other side, you'll hit this enemy instead. But because the orientation of this is ambiguous, you can't actually tell, at least until you try it. Right, so because in this case the green ones are going to come from this side and the blue from here, shooting here will hit the bubble, and shooting here will hit this. If it were reversed and the green were coming from this side, then I would have to shoot here to hit the bubble, and shooting there would hit this one. So that can reveal it. If you react quickly enough, you can actually tell by shooting one side of this and seeing what happens. You can then anticipate which side will have green and which side will have blue. Basically, you know, I said it. So what you want to do is you want to shoot this. See, even that shot was too far to the left to hit this bubble. That's how weird it is. So if you want to hit that, and then you want to get rid of this, and then you want to wait a bit, and then you want to shoot one of these yellow enemies on the left side. I messed it up. Like that. So, first of all, it's good to know that when you shoot these, even though it takes 2 hits to kill these, it will almost always take 3 hits. Because your first 2 will damage each of these once. That's just what happens. So prepare to shoot 3 times for this. And then yeah, that's the simplest way. The timing's kind of precise. You can also just shoot that, but it requires having reacted instantly to the bubble on the green enemy. Often you won't be that fast, and you'll just want to do that. So sometimes you don't need to kill the bubble in the middle. You can just do this, and it works. And in that sense, it's kind of safe to see the initial shot as just a test. Like you see that, and you know it's going to be green on that side. But, you know, it's just a pretty fast formation, and you have to do a lot to prepare it. Oftentimes it won't be possible. There's another way. There's another way where you destroy it from over here. And what you do is you shoot the blue one, or one of these, and then while it's exploding, you shoot this. If it's moving too quickly, you can't do it that way. But if it's slow enough, you can. I think in this instance, it's too fast. It seems to me like this will not be possible. Yeah. So yeah, it's a difficult one to get the perfect on. And if you just want to dodge it, it's also annoying because you get this blue one. The way the blue works is it drops to your vertical level and comes at you. And since it's so tall and has big enemies, it can easily be a wall across most of the screen. And then the green ones just aim at you. So dealing with this can be tricky. You wanna get the blue one to go in a way that doesn't trap you. And in a last resort, you can fit between them, as I was doing. That was the fairy that hit me, not the enemy. So yeah, generally unpleasant formation, but not the worst thing in the world. What was the other thing I wanted to say? And I guess in a lot of cases, what you're gonna do is like that sort of thing, because it's just critical to get rid of the blue ones. If nothing else, leaving them alive is very dangerous. You know, sometimes you'll have to, but if there's one thing you're gonna destroy, let it be the blue enemies. And I think that's it. You know, like I said, you can sometimes just get random perfects on this one, just by shooting something quickly. And you usually don't actually need to get rid of the middle yellow bubble. Now, this is everyone's favorite. This formation appears from the bottom of the screen in the corner and moves up, and then does a little loop, and then aims at you. And at the same time, 4 tiny enemies appear from the top. So, for one thing, of course, this can be a danger of spawning on top of you. It's a good reason never to linger in the corners. I mean, it's pretty bad to linger in the corners anyway in this game, but this is just yet another reason. And then the perfect is very difficult to do. A lot of times it's totally unreasonable because you need to stay in one place for a long time. So let's try to do it. Basically, what you will do is you need to injure this enemy, break the shield on this one, and then break the shield on the little red one that comes down here. And then you need to position yourself right here so that when this aims at you, it goes sideways. And then you shoot this or this. And hopefully it works. So let's see. There we go. Very hard to do, especially when the game is fast. It's just not reasonable. And yeah, like I said, you can shoot you can, if you have damaged this twice so that it's red, then you can shoot this. If not, then you need to shoot that to kill it. And the more horizontal you get this to go, the better. You know, it can aim down this way and still work. Basically, you're just you're pushing the limit of what the explosion range will be to get this. This is like the problematic thing here. Missing this one is very easy. If you shoot too late, on the other hand, you'll miss these, because they'll go up and leave before the chain gets over there. So it's very tough to do, and the setup requires you to have lingered around here for a long time, and then starting a combo here is risky because you're going to have fireballs going to this spot. Like if you saw when I did it before, it sent a ton of things back. Like that. So yeah, a lot of the time this one is just not worth going for. It's also got this this bug, or I think it's a bug anyway, that's present in one of the other formations too, where if you're too high, when it does this loop, that didn't cause it. You have to be even higher, I guess. No. If you're in a certain spot, it will... Yeah, I guess I don't know what the precise conditions are for it. There it is. If you're high enough, it will just go straight up and leave, which actually can be very good in certain contexts, if you want it to just go away. So I guess, yeah, just kill this like that and wait there, and it will go away like that. That's good to know. And then, yeah, otherwise it's a lot about where you lead it, right? Like it's gonna come down like that and possibly be a nuisance. You can lead it, you know, over here, down there, whatever. Just manage it. It's not too bad to ignore. Like, it doesn't take up a ton of space. It's more just like it baits you into going for the perfect when usually you should not. It's too risky. So what it does is based on where I'm standing. So for instance, if I'm here, let me turn that down. If I'm standing here, you can see this is what you want it to look like. All you need to do here is shoot one of these and you'll get it. If I'm... Oh, jeez. If I'm here... There we go. But as you can see, it's really weird, and if I'm even like there, it doesn't work. The thing appears too far to the right. Now if it's slightly off center, you can still get it in some cases by shooting this one rather than this. I almost did it. There we go. It's also important to recognize that these green ones, they move down until they get close enough to you, and then they start spreading apart like this. So oftentimes you need to stay low to even do this one. If you go up too soon, they start spreading out like that immediately. Which can also be used, of course, to get rid of them sooner, if that's what you want to do. But generally speaking, this is just a very luck-dependent formation, because it's either possible or impossible based upon where you were standing when it spawned. And yeah, that's about it. It's an unfair one, and dodging it is pretty rough as well. It just kind of goes all over the place. But yeah, not an easy one to deal with. So this is one of the the hardest formations to get a perfect on in this game. The timing is just outrageously precise and kinda seems dependent on luck. There's two ways to do it that I know of. One is to shoot the bubble and then destroy the green enemy, and you have to kill this enemy at the perfect time. Not too soon and not too late. The other way to do it is to just shoot this enemy and nothing else, but you have to do it immediately, faster than it's possible to react. So only by luck, by just a stray shot hitting this as soon as it appears, can you ever really get it this way. So you have to try for this method, which just requires perfect timing. So let's see if I can show it. I missed. That got it. I think I actually killed the I killed this enemy and it worked. That's the other thing, is that the rank affects this quite a bit and changes the timing. So at this pretty high rank, it may be possible to kill this and have it just work. You know, again, it's the single player effect. There it was. That time it failed. That time it worked. It almost seems easier than usual at high rank. And the other way, hit the wrong enemy. Like that. But like I said, it's gotta be immediate. So that's not actually practical. And then otherwise, you need to be careful with this formation, specifically because of this enemy. You'll see it goes here and then moves down like this. This can easily ram you, and becomes very hard to see when you're just shooting the formation like this. Like if you ignored it, it can be hard to tell if it's dead or not, and then ram you in sort of like this fashion. Well, it died. Keeps dying. At lower rank, it lives much more often. So just watch for these enemies that do that. There you go. See it? It's going down this way. That one died. There it is. See? Those are dangerous. This is also just a formation that leaves very fast. So sometimes you can miss the fever orb. If the orb is in one of those enemies that just leaves back off the top of the screen. Like that. Otherwise, this is not it's not a difficult one to just ignore, if need be. It doesn't do anything too weird aside from those tiny red enemies kind of shooting out. But if you know they're there, you can account for them. And yeah, it's a very difficult pattern to get it perfect on, but a pretty good one just for big combos. So it's not really a disappointing one when you see it. Alright, this formation is one of the most dangerous in the game. It is very difficult to avoid shooting anything when this formation is on screen. It takes up so much space, constricts you to a very small area, and it's very hard to shoot anything in it such that it doesn't connect to other things and start a chain reaction near the top. So for that reason, it's really very difficult to deal with. Basically, these two rows of yellow enemies come in from the top, they circle around, and they leave down the wall. And then there's also these green ones. They come in from a random side. They move across till they're above you, then they go down, and then when they get about to this height, they aim, they adjust their trajectory to move towards you. So to get the perfect, there's a couple ways, depending on how quickly you react. Generally, ideally, you want to shoot the bubbles off of these, and then shoot those. It's actually pretty generous. There's a couple alternate timings you can go for. For instance, you actually don't need to destroy both bubbles. You can instead do it like this, where you shoot the one, and then what's going to happen is this one is going to come up on this side, and you shoot the green enemies over here, so that the green enemies exploding removes this bubble, and then the whole thing works as it continues over, like so. In some cases, you can actually shoot one of these, assuming you've also gotten rid of the bubbles. It's pretty difficult to do when it's moving this fast, but yeah, that works. And then getting the bubbles themselves, there's a handful of ways, like I said, depending on how quickly you react to it. You know, you can shoot them up there, you can do that, which is really insane. Like I said, you don't actually need to get both of them. You can even get neither, and do something like that, and shoot one of the bubbles after starting the combo. So there's a lot of ways to do it. The main thing to keep in mind with this one is how you're going to deal with it if you need to skip it, because it forces you around so much. So it's good to know all kinds of different methods for avoiding it, because believe me, you will have to. I think generally the smartest, the easiest thing is to go up here and try to make the green enemies descend downward as close to the wall as you can. There's crap kind of getting in the way in this instance, but like that gets you a lot of space. Otherwise, these green ones can be such a problem. Where they're doing this sort of thing. And as for the orb, when the orb is in this one, I don't recall it being weird. I don't remember which enemies it replaces, but it shouldn't cause a unusual problem. So this one is maybe the hardest perfect to get in the game. It's very hard to describe, but basically, well, first off, this set of enemies is going to do what it does. It shows up and goes diagonally down like that. The other group moves across until it's lined up with you and then goes down. So the idea behind the perfect is you need to get these enemies exploding and also remove these bubbles. Now the way these enemies are, with their size and their health, you can't just shoot this, nor can you just shoot this or that. You need to weaken these two enemies at least once each, and then shooting that one will cause the chain reaction. But obviously, since these are behind that, weakening them first and then shooting this one is really difficult. You get one very brief opportunity to do so. When it does this, see, they sort of come forward, and if you can shoot each of them once at this time, then later you can shoot the red enemy, and the explosions will connect, and then you just go up and shoot the bubbles off. Now this is easier said than done. Like I said, it's probably the hardest one in the game. Did it wrong. There it was. Doing it that way requires extremely fast reaction, because these enemies only show themselves like that very, very briefly right at the start. So usually you can't do it that way. What you need to do instead is actually shoot this first, and then very quickly move up the side of this and damage each of these once as well. You need to shoot this one, then one shot on here, one shot on here, and both of those need to be fast enough that these enemies have not yet taken damage from the previous explosion. Right, if you shoot this and then it turns that one red and then you shoot too late, you'll just kill it and lose the perfect. It's got to be extremely fast, which at this point, because I'm on single player and the rank is very high, I think I can't even do it this way. I can try to show it, but basically the faster it becomes, the more impossible it is to do this method. Yeah. And so then you keep going up and try to shoot the bubbles off. But it's the timing is so strict, and you have to time each individual shot correctly. It's very, very unreasonable. You can do it like that as well. I think which timing is easier depends on the rank. Usually I would choose to do it higher up, like this. But I guess in this case doing it low maybe is easier, yeah. So it's the kind of thing that, you know, you kind of just run alongside it while shooting and hope for the best. Being consistent at it is very, very difficult. And as for dodging it, it's pretty straightforward. You just have to watch for this this aimed group. They come down at you like that. And then the other one just does the same thing every time. So it's not too bad to ignore. You know, you can do this sort of thing. And that's it for that one. There are a couple approaches to this one. Basically, you've got two green groups coming down the sides. They move towards you when the lowest enemy reaches your height. And then this blue group just kind of twangles all over the place. So there's a couple ways to do it. Generally, you want to shoot the bubbles off of the bottom enemies. Like that. You can shoot them both, then start the combo. Usually it's easiest to shoot one, then get it going, and then shoot the other. But notice the sides are not the same, right? One of them is lower than the other. And you want to recognize which is which. Because for the one that's higher, doing it this way is extremely easy. Shooting it, starting the combo, shooting that one. That will always work. For the other side, doing it that way, it's just a little unreliable. So rather what you want to do is go across and shoot the other one. And then shoot that like that, which makes it a little trickier. You know, you can also potentially shoot that, then shoot this. Again, that one's a little stricter. You just have to kind of time it perfectly. I don't like doing it this way. And of course, you know, it's easier if the enemies are moving slower. Not story mode speed. There you go. But yeah, generally, if you can identify quickly enough which line is which, do it this way. Go for that one. Because that's the simplest way to do it. And now, for dodging this, again, it's one of these ones where the enemies drop down. But then you've also got these blue ones, right? Which basically cover the whole bottom of the screen. Either corner is safe from them. Right? If you're here, you're safe. And if you're all the way on the other side, you're safe. But anywhere between, they can potentially ram into you. And you can fit between them. Like that. Kind of risky. So, yeah. The usual rules. The usual stuff with these sorts of things that drop down. Make sure they don't trap you at the bottom. Make sure you save yourself a little bit of distance like this. And apart from that, it's not too bad. It's a pretty easy formation to deal with. You know, you can go between them as well, like that. And they're not even the largest enemy size, so that's not too hard to go between them that way. And here you can shoot this blue one like that to prevent it from hitting you. Now, when the fever orb is in this formation, it can be a little tricky. There's a risk of missing it. I forget where exactly. It can replace one of the blue ones. And then what happens if you get to this point? it's kind of like you have to shoot the blue one fast enough or you're gonna miss the orb. I don't remember exactly which position it occupies. Just know that it's one to be wary of. If the orb is in that pattern, you might need to act pretty fast to not miss it. I think that's all I have to say about it. Alright, this one. This is a really tricky formation to deal with. For a couple reasons. So, you've got these three groups. This one, which kind of just flies all over the place and then comes down. This one, which descends down the side and then scatters apart when it reaches your vertical level. So like if I'm here, you'll see this enemy starts going off screen much sooner. If I stay at the bottom, then that enemy gets all the way down here. So this column reacts to your height, and then this one just goes on a consistent path like that. So to get the perfect requires very fast reaction. In story mode like this, with the rank very high, it's pretty ridiculous. You almost have to know it's coming, and even then, in normal circumstances, this isn't actually that hard, but still it's one of the harder ones, and depending on where you're standing, when this formation appears, you might just not be able to get where you need to be fast enough to do it. But basically, the gist of it is, you need to shoot this bubble as quick as you can, like extremely fast, and then destroy either this enemy or this enemy. And you need to do this without causing this one to go off screen. So you can't be too high, right? You can't be up here shooting this one and then going down, or you're gonna miss this enemy. So you have to kind of do it from lower. So you shoot in advance to hit the bubble enemy like that, and then get the green one there. Like I said, it's so fast now that it's just ridiculous. Like I can probably do it, but it's yeah, that did it. But then you know, the funny thing is that probably would have been too late. It's because the rank was so high that actually conducted all the way down. Usually that would have missed. The normal timing is killing the green one when it's about here, or this one. It can be either of these, and you have to destroy this bubble first. Yeah, difficult one to do. Usually it won't be possible, but it's not too bad. You know, doing it in story mode can give the impression that it's just impossible. But when it's moving slower, it's more reasonable. Anyway, dodging it's tricky because you get these things doing that. Basically, there's just a whole bunch of elements scattered around to potentially ram into you. Then this goes up, it covers the screen like that. If you get caught above that, you can actually fit through those enemies. If I don't get hit by fireballs. I think there's another formation in the game that has a similar group. You can fit like that. Very risky. If you get trapped up there like that, you should probably bomb. Trying to squeeze through them like that can kill you. And so, you know, this is a good one where if you're just trying to dodge it, you'll probably want to, like, remove at least some of the enemies to make it less ridiculous to dodge all these different elements. And the fever orb, if the orb is in this, forget which one specifically it can replace, but yeah, I don't remember which one it is, but basically if you're too slow to shoot, it can become very hard to get the orb, unless you then also wait. Yeah, which one is it? Maybe this or this. I don't remember. There's a very annoying position for the fever orb to be in this formation that makes it very easy to miss. It's kind of hard to describe how you deal with it without having it be here. Uh, so just be wary of that. And if you see it, the solution, if you don't get it immediately, is to wait until these two groups sort of meet by doing this, and then shooting something to get the orb wherever it is. I don't remember where. So yeah, very tricky formation. Lots of different elements moving around. Alright then, I guess that's that. 36 formations, if I counted correctly. Hopefully I didn't forget any. If you made it to the end of this video, you're probably about as crazy as I am. Anyway, I hope something in it was helpful for someone. A lot of this stuff is kind of not like secret knowledge, but it's, the people who know it tend not to be very well, they're not secretive, but they're just not actively spreading it around. You find one of the very few people who knows how to play this game on like Fightcade or whatever, and you're generally not going to have a conversation, mainly because they're like Japanese or Korean or whatever. So a lot of this stuff you just got to learn it by watching other players and experimenting. And so since over the years I've learned a bunch of tricks, I figured I'd share them, and maybe some people can learn them. So yeah, hope it was useful, and thanks for watching.